does not have the emails, but the alleged contents were made available to CNN. So I don't think CNN would risk a major lawsuit in reference to reporting something that they didn't feel was credible evidence that they had in their possession. So let's get this straight. I'm not going to sit here and say CNN has those emails presently with them, but at the time of this recording, the alleged contents were made available to CNN. Now, all of us know now, jury last month convicted Sandusky, 68 years old, Penn State University's former defensive coordinator, on 45 count of sexual abusing 10 boys over a 15-year period. Sandusky and Joe Paterno were great friends. A lot of sources say they were the best of friends. Now, we all know the story. We all know what happened, that Joe Paterno was not able to complete his 62nd season with Penn State after the scandal broke out, became public. This fallout in 2011, during the 2011 season, from the child sex abuse scandal involving Sandusky. And like I said, he was an assistant on Paterno's Penn State staff. Now, he was an assistant up until 1999. When this child sex abuse scandal became known, it then forced Penn State's hands. They had to do something. It prompted the university's board of trustees to fire Paterno, who was at the time 84 years old. He passed away a few months later at the age of 85 due to lung cancer. I'm not going to come on here and say I'm just coming out going to target Paterno, the heavy criticism, because of my title. No, it seemed like Paterno ran clean programs. He was the face of Penn State for many years. If anything, he's guilty of bad judgment and not doing the correct thing involving his friend Jerry Sandusky. And this will probably forever tarnish his legacy. No one's going to remember all the victories he has obtained, the over 400 victories. I mean, no one's going to remember it. They're going to just remember this mistake. When you didn't report this guy, he became an enabler of Sandusky's, certainly his perverted ways, and that was molesting little boys. Now, I've been reading a lot of blogs and seeing a lot of comments. No, Joe Paterno is not a pervert. No, he did not molest these kids. I'm tired of hearing those lies. But did he do anything to protect those kids? At the time, in 2001, that was the first, from what I was, what's been reported. He could have saved 9 other guys, 9 other little boys. Or not just him, but many others, if they would have done the right thing and reported it. So, I'm not going to sit on here and call him a pervert. No, because he was not. Now, Paterno, like I said, was criticized for not going to law enforcement. Once he was told by then graduate, now according to reports that Assistant Mike McCreary told him in 2002, he had seen Sandusky allegedly sexually abusing a young boy in a shower on campus. So yes, at that point, once he was told some information, he should have went to the university of officials, went through protocol, but then the next step all of them should have done was go to the local law enforcement. No ifs, ands, or buts. I don't give a who this guy was. You're doing something illegal. You report him. Especially child molestation. You report that. Now, on June the 15th, legendary Duke coach Mike Krzyzewski was interviewed by Piers Morgan on his show, Piers Morgan Tonight Show. And this occurred on June the 15th of this year, 2012. And here's what Coach K had to say in reference to the termination of Joe Paterno, courtesy of CNN.
Probably the only person that could rival you in reputation for college sport was Joe Paterno. And his career came to this awful, tragic end. How did you feel about that? As someone that knew him well, worked in a parallel world to him for a long time. I mean, a very sad thing for him, wasn't it?
No, it's horrible. And I've respected Coach Paterno for my entire life and had a chance to get to know him really well in the last year of his life. We did a show together, and I thought it was really not well done, in handling the situation. That it's a difficult situation to encounter, but you had somebody who's given 6 decades of service to a university and done such an incredible job. Somehow you have to let something has to play out and respect the fact that you've gone through all these experiences for 6 decades, and it doesn't just go out the window, right at the end. I thought it was a real mistake by Penn State's leadership.
I mean, if such a similar set of circumstances had happened at Duke, you had a Sandusky-like figure, and innocent till proven guilty,
Right.
but on the assumption that a lot of what we're hearing has some merit to it. How do you deal with that? What should Joe Paterno perhaps have done that he didn't?
Well, you should deal with it like any team should deal with. In other words, I'm on the Duke team. If that happened in my area, then I would look to work with my athletic director and my president to have a solution. And if that solution meant that I would step down, I would do it in a way which would be part of the solution, not like you're just throwing out. And you have to understand that in leadership, you may be asked to step down, and that's part of being a leader.
Now, Coach K did make a good point, because when all of this surfaced in 2011, he did offer to resign. But at that point, the board of directors were under pressure. Penn State officials were under pressure from the press, from the state government, or whoever. They were under pressure. And they chose to just sit back and said no, in their words now. In my words, not their words. Let me rephrase that. I don't want to get sued. But in my words, what probably happened is, thanks, but no thanks, Joe. You've been trying to leave at your own terms for years. Because there was a time in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, where his teams did have losing records. And they tried to get him to retire then, and he wouldn't. He wanted to always leave at his own terms, which many coaches do. So I'm not going to knock him for that. But at this time, it was not the time that I'm going to leave at my own terms. They didn't want to hear it. You're leaving. Whether you want to or not, whether you choose to resign, but we're firing you. We're trying to save face here. You're fired. I mean, how long is too long? This man has been, first started, Joe Paterno, the man I'm talking about, was an assistant coach at Penn State. He began in 1950 to 1966 when he became the head coach. So he was at this one school from 1950 to 2011. He was there longer than any official, any professor. He was there longer than anybody. He became the face of Penn State. You couldn't talk about Penn State without talking about Joe Paterno. When you mention Penn State, the first face that come to your mind is Joe Paterno. And like I said earlier, over 400 wins. He holds the record for the most victories by an NCAA Division I FBS football coach with 409, and the only FBS coach to reach 400. Okay, let's go back to those who might not know what FBS means. It's Football Bowl Subdivision. If you're cheering for your team and they get to go to the Gator Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, whatever bowl, the Toilet Bowl, they are FBS team. So once again, FBS means Football Bowl Subdivision. I mean, how long is too long for a coach? Look at the mistakes that a lot of schools have made by, the coaches, they bring money to the schools. It's big money. NCAA, football, basketball is big money. Coaches get big bank for coaching these two sports. So just imagine, at one time, and we're gonna go over this again next week. This is going to be a part 2 to this in regards to after JoePa, should coaches be the face of colleges and universities? So you may say just look, Coach K, he runs a pretty clean program, a decent program at Duke. I only think I heard one rumor of a situation where Corey Maggette may have taken money from an AAU coach prior to coming to Duke, but even if he did, you can't necessarily blame a coach for that. Something that happened prior to the young man or woman coming to your school. But still, a lot of rumors surfaced in the late 90s that Corey Maggette was illegal. Or, I wouldn't say illegal, but he was ineligible because of that. But as we know, Corey Maggette left Duke after his freshman year. He was one and done. So that issue just was swept, away. And it should have been. Because to me, it wasn't really major. It was something beyond anyone's control. But Coach K seems to run a pretty fair program, decent program at Duke. But, there was a time when he wasn't the face of Duke. He's the face of Duke whether he wants to be or not. When you mention Duke, Coach K, I don't care if it's academics or whatever. When you mention Duke, Coach K's name just automatically comes up. His face just comes up. The image of his face just comes up in your brain, in your head. Duke, Coach K. That's the first thing. UNC, Roy Williams. Former coach Butch Davis. That's what comes to your head. But is that the way it should be? Because with so many programs, look at Jim Calhoun. Even though he is the men's basketball coach, and Coach Gino there's won probably twice as many titles with the women's national titles with the women's basketball program. Jim Calhoun is still the face. Both of them are the faces of the university, but more so Jim Calhoun with his 3 national championships. Of course, the most recent was in 2011. But he is the face of the university. But what happened? Just recently, what happened to that university? Look at it. In February 2011, he was cited by the NCAA for failing to create an atmosphere of compliance within the men's basketball program. He had a short suspension during last season. I think they suspended him 3 games, 3 Big East games. No biggie. Got sort of a slap on the wrist with that. But the NCAA also hit them with scholarship reductions at UConn for 3 academic years, recruiting restrictions, permanent disassociation with the booster, and 3 years probation. Now, UConn will also be ineligible for postseason play this upcoming 2012 and 13 season. Now, what happens to Jim Calhoun? He's still the face of that university. He's still there. And it just comes to money. Is it right? I don't think so. But the university's not really going to do anything because Calhoun is bringing them good money. He's bringing in money through tournaments. Now, it might hurt him now. Now, you're going to be ineligible this year. My thing is, what happens in the next couple of years if they're ineligible for NCAA postseason play? Do you get rid of them then at that point? Being that he's not a cash cow anymore, or the players, he's not bringing in the money, The players are the cash cows. I apologize. The players, male and female, are the cash cows. He's the coach of the cash cows. But the cash cows can't bring you any money because they're not getting into postseason play. So, same thing with football. Same thing with football. If that coach, who is the face of the university, gets that team in some type of probation, or their probation under his watch, how quick will the school want to get rid of that coach? Since the NCAA uses the term so freely, student athletes, the university should not be known by a head coach, by a coach, football, basketball, or whatever. It should be known judged by the quality of education and the strong academic integrity of the school. Now, this is since the NCAA calls it calls the cash cow student athletes. They use the word so freely, but yet and still, they would rather for the university, college presidents would rather for the universities to be known as the face of a coach rather than the integrity of their academics, or known for academic integrity. That's what I'm going to go into more next week, and why I respect Syracuse University and how they handled the Bernie Fine situation. Now, unfortunately, my time is up for this week's show, and I certainly hope you sat back and enjoyed your early morning coffee with Babe Tom Herman. So please